I never imagined that moving in a Fairhaven glade would evolve into a war of attrition with the most entitled neighbor I had ever encountered. The neighborhood had seemed perfect on paper. Pristine lawns, a community clubhouse, a sparkling pool, and modest homeowners association fees. What the realtor tactfully omitted, however, was that the HOA was ruled with an iron clipboard by Patricia Langley, a woman in her 50s with meticulously styled blonde hair and the unmistakable aura of someone who had turned complaining into a profession. The trouble began 3 weeks after I settled in. Wanting to create a low-maintenance, environmentally friendly front yard, I planted native wildflowers, milkweed, black-eyed Susans, and goldenrod. These were all approved under Section 4.3 of the HOA bylaws. I had double-checked everything before I started planting. But there she was, Patricia, at my doorstep at 7:30 on a Saturday morning, dressed in a fluorescent yellow vest with HOA president stitched across her chest like a badge of authority. "These weeds need to be removed immediately," she declared, flashing a tight smile that never touched her eyes. "They're not weeds," I replied calmly. "They're native wildflowers. Section 4.3 explicitly permits them. They're drought-resistant and beneficial for local pollinators." Her smile faltered, if only for a second. "Well, they look like weeds to me. And as president, I have the final say. I expect them gone by Monday, or you'll face a $100 per day fine." She handed me a violation notice and marched off, her white sneakers tapping rhythmically against the sidewalk. I didn't remove the flowers. Instead, I sent a well-documented email to the entire HOA board with photographs of my garden and highlighted excerpt from the bylaws supporting my choices. Patricia was copied on the email. I received no reply, but the fine never materialized. Round 1 me, but Patricia wasn't finished. Over the next 2 months, violation notices flooded in. First, it was my trash being visible from the curb 13 hours after pickup. Then my garage door being open while I worked on my car. Once, it was even the color of my garden hose, which apparently offended her sensibilities. There was no regulation on garden hose color. Every time, I responded with bylaw citations and photographic evidence. And every time, Patricia's frustration seemed to deepen. "You think you're so clever," she snapped one evening as I collected my mail. She'd been waiting by the curb. "Just because you can quote bylaws doesn't mean you belong here. Some of us have standards." I smiled politely. "I appreciate your dedication to the neighborhood. Patricia, have a lovely evening." It became clear that her issue wasn't my compliance. It was my very presence. Someone who understood the rules as well as she did and didn't bend to her authority was a threat. As a remote software developer, I often received important deliveries, but some began to go missing. At first, I blamed postal delays. But then my neighbor, Roy, leaned over the fence one afternoon with a peculiar story. "I saw Patricia at your mailbox yesterday," he said. "She had one of those forwarding forms in her hand. Looked like she didn't want anyone seeing her." Alarmed, I contacted the local post office. Sure enough, someone had submitted a forwarding request in my name. The new address? Patricia Langley's home. "This is a federal offense," the clerk said seriously. "Mail fraud and theft carry heavy penalties. Would you like to file a formal complaint?" I thought about everything: the harassment, the lost work package, the late credit card bill. "Yes," I said. "Absolutely." The postal inspector I spoke with took my case seriously. Evidence was compiled. I was told that mail fraud could mean up to 5 years in federal prison and fines of up to $250,000. While I didn't expect Patricia to face the maximum, the gravity of the situation was clear. 2 days later, while working from home, I saw a scene unfold outside my window. 2 postal inspectors and a local police officer knocking on Patricia's door. Her confusion turned to indignation, then fear. She pointed toward my house, gesticulated wildly, and eventually followed them inside. That evening, Michael Tran, the HOA's vice president and a level-headed man, called an emergency meeting. All residents were encouraged to attend. In the community center, Michael addressed the gathered neighbors. "It has come to the board's attention that our president has been involved in activities that do not reflect the values of our community," he said, carefully choosing his words. MS. Langley has been temporarily removed from her position, pending investigation into alleged mail tampering. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Patricia wasn't present, but her husband sat in the back, his head bowed. Michael continued, "We extend our apologies to the affected resident. We are cooperating fully with the authorities. All recent violation notices issued by MS. Langley will be reviewed for legitimacy." After the meeting, several neighbors approached me in quiet solidarity. It turned out I wasn't the only target. Patricia had weaponized her role for years to punish those who crossed her or didn't fit her image of an ideal resident. 3 weeks later, I received a certified letter from the district attorney's office. Patricia had been formally charged with mail fraud, a felony. She faced up to 3 years of probation, a $5,000 fine, and had been permanently removed from the HOA board. Also enclosed was a list of recovered items found in her home, including my missing graphics card and numerous unopened letters. The next day, at the local grocery store, I spotted her in the cereal aisle. She looked diminished, hunched over, eyes shadowed by fatigue. When she saw me, she froze. "You ruined my life," she whispered, bitterness curling around every word. "I lost my job at the real estate office. Do you know what a criminal record does to a license?" I placed a box of cereal in my cart, then looked her in the eye. "I didn't ruin your life, Patricia. You did that. You committed a federal crime. Actions have consequences. Just like there are consequences for wildflowers, except only one of those is actually illegal." Her face flushed. For once, she had no retort, no regulations to cite, no power to wield. She turned abruptly, abandoning her cart and hurrying out of the store. Her reign of suburban tyranny finally ended. Fairhaven Glade was quieter after that. The wildflowers bloomed untouched, and the community, once shadowed by petty tyranny, felt a little freer, a little more neighborly. The bylaws hadn't changed, but the spirit of the neighborhood had. And that, I realized, was worth every bit of the battle.